You want to know the basics of React hooks, useState, and useEffect? Then this tutorial is for you. Hi everyone, my name is Yazan, and I'm an instructor at Integrify Academy. We upload new content on YouTube every Thursday. Today I'm going to walk you through the basics of React hooks by fetching a list of to-dos from an API. So if at some point you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe as well. And do not forget to hit the notification bell. Yeah, so let's go.
Right, so what do we have here today? This is what we're going to build, a list of to-dos. It's pretty basic, there's not interactive. The main idea here is just to see how can we use the useState and how can we use the useEffect to fetch some data from an API and display it to the UI. So again, all the stylings, all the styling has already pre-coded. So we're not going to go through the styling part of it, but you can always refer back to the CSS file. Again, the main focus here is just how can we use like the basic usage of useState and useEffect. So let's get to it. So this is what we have at least so far in the UI, just title and black background. Let's see what we can do about it. Maybe I can get this a bit smaller. Yes. All right. So what do we have here? We have a very basic app. And first thing what we need to do is, again, since we are using TypeScript, we want to declare the types. So what are the types? I know that already. It's from the API. I know that I'm going to get an ID, title, user ID, and completed. So this is the type of each one of it. And I will work my way out of from this type. Next up is writing the useState. So useState you basically import it from React, and then you do an array destructuring. This is useState returns an array, and then you need to destructure from that. So this is how it goes. The first index is basically where all the state is. So if you want to access what is the current state, then you access it from the very first one. And then the second one is the setter. So if you want to update the state, then you use the second to update the state. So the type of the second variable here is a function. So that's how you update the state. And again, this is where all this current state is been held. So the moment you console log this or whatever you do with it, then you would have access to the current to-dos, for example. Next up is we have this basically this value here. So if you leave it empty, it means it's undefined. So the initial value of the useState will be undefined. So the moment that the component renders the first render, then this value will be, so if you try to console log to-dos in the first render, it will be undefined. So whatever you put here as an initial value, this will be the initial value of that to-dos in the very first render, and then it's up to you when do you want to update it, so on and so forth. And since we're using a TypeScript, we want to tell React that, hey, the to-dos is an array of to-do. So here we pass the type, and then we tell it it's an array of to-dos, and that's we always make sure that we always set the object will be in the shape of to-do. So what is next? So usually if you want to maybe do some like side effects or some kind of asynchronous job here, so one of your example is to go ahead and fetch from the API. Then how can you do it? In the vanilla kind of React way, we use the useEffect. useEffect will allow you to basically go ahead and do such behaviors. So useEffect, it's a bit kind of not complicated, but it's tricky and it's annoying sometimes. So, and it's really hard to grasp. But if you're already kind of familiar of what was it like in a class-based component, the life cycle, what was it like, then this useEffect would be a bit more clearer, maybe easier to digest. But usually the component overall, it goes through different life cycles from its like birth, you can say, till it's like destroyed. So some of these life cycles is like we're talking about the class-based component, where you have component will mount, did mount, and then we check if the component is updated or receiving something, or if the component is destroyed, which is unmount. So there are more into this. So we have different life cycles, and each component goes through these life cycles, and from the beginning till the end. So useEffect here it basically combines 2 or 3 different life cycles in one statement. So in a useEffect, you can kind of mimic, or you can have the behavior of component did mount. So we can do stuff, we can do something when the component mounts. That's one thing what we can do, and that's really good, because what we really want to do here right now is we want to fetch some data from an API the moment that this component mounts. And then the second task of useEffect, or what can do for you, is kind of component should update, and then so basically if you want to rerun your effect, if at some point something has changed, so maybe the URL changed, the query has changed, yeah, so if you want to rerun at a certain point, whether a bool or a variable, you are tracking a variable and so on, then the useEffect can do that. And it can do it from its dependencies. So that's here it called the dependencies, and whatever variables you put here in the dependencies, the useEffect will listen to. I just say, okay, I'm going to run my useEffect once anyway. Doesn't matter what you have here, because that's how it goes. At least it runs once, and then from there, I will keep my eyes, or I will keep my ears listening to whatever variables you put here, and then if any of these variables got changed, then I'm going to rerun the effect. So for example, if I have maybe a variable called like, hey, is admin, and this admin has changed from true to false, it means now useEffect will rerun the effect, because it's listening to that variable and the variable has changed. So I'm going to rerun the entire effect here. So yeah, so that's basically that's when we're talking about the useEffect, or when we talk about the kind of updating stuff. Then we have the last purpose of the last thing that can useEffect do is, for example, here I have some demo here. So basically, if you have maybe something that you want to clean up, maybe you have some kind of maybe here you have a request to an API, and this specific component demo has unmounted, but for some reasons your request is still going on, it's still pending, and you really don't want to keep it pending, or you don't really want to keep it going if you don't really need it at this point, because remember, this component has unmounted, has left the UI. So what you can do here is you can do some cleaning up. So at this point we call it component unmount. And so how you can achieve that, if you want to run some code when the component leaves the UI, then you do it in a way that you write a return, and it takes a callback function, and whatever you write here will get executed or will run when component unmounts, right? And examples what you can do here, maybe you can like kind of port, that's the word here, port an HTTP request, one of this. Maybe you can reset some state. It's up to you, depends on any cleanup. But anyway, if you really are interested to have a deeper tutorial or deeper demo about how this runs, whether in the useEffect or useState or any other state, please leave in the comments so I can build something for you. All right, let's get back to what are we trying to build here. So what we want to do here is we want to fetch some to-dos from an API and then basically display them. So what do we need at this point? First thing, we need to have a basically what API we want to get the data from. That's one. Second thing is I want a state that holds the data, right? So step 2 is already kind of configured here. I already have a state. I wrote a state, and I'm going to keep and save all my data in this state. So let's continue. I'm using now the fetch API here, which basically I'm sending a fetch request to this endpoint, and it will return back to me an array of to-dos. So we can confirm by like copying and then just go and actually list them. So you could see here, this is a list of to-dos that my component will receive at some point. So yeah, next up, what we are going to do here, because it's a fetch, we need to serialize it and just make it to JSON format, so we can work with the JSON format. So and you might notice here I'm using async await. So if you want to use async await inside a useEffect, you need to basically kind of bundle all this code into a function and then eventually invoke that function in the useEffect. That's how you can get async await in a useEffect. And the latest, you already know it. So the moment here at this line here, I have the hold of the data. I get the data from the response, and I'm only one step away from actually letting React aware of this data, or letting my state to be aware of this data, which is basically invoking the setter function that comes from the useState. And that's here where we kind of set all the or change or update that current state, which is the to-dos. So right now I'm updating all my state here with the current data. And next up is I want to basically invoke and run that function, right, which is fetch to-dos. So we are almost there, and I can right now, like for example, like console log to-dos and go back and let's see what this would look like. So you would notice right at that point here, because we have set the initial state as an array, in the first render we got an array of 0. So this is the array. So here I could demonstrate like what if I would remove that array from here. And then maybe refresh, you would see that the initial state is undefined. That's the initial state when you don't provide anything. So I'm here telling you, hey, go be an array type. So if I refresh now, you could see it's an array, and here the console log is printing twice because of React 18. It just does that, and in the restrict mode. So you can remove that anyway from your index file. So you can see right now my to-dos has changed from empty array to a list of to-dos, and that's exactly what we have done is we fetched to-dos and we updated the state in the useEffect. One thing here, so I think let's just continue doing that. So I'm going to undo. All right. So next up here, because at this point I got the hold of to-dos, and now I'm almost there, so I could now look through them. And the idea here, I'm having all them in a list item, and don't forget the key if you're looping it. So the key here, try to find something unique in the array or the object. Do not maybe use the index as a key unless you know what you're doing. Then next up, we want to have the details. So the details is just basically task done by, and then the user ID. Here I'm just printing actually whatever data I have from the object. And then lastly is I'm checking that, hey, you remember we have a type completed, so it's a boolean. So here I'm checking if the to-do is completed or not. So if it's completed, I want to render that HTML tag, and if it's not, then this. I have a CSS for each behavior here, and it will basically show me a different view. So if I save it and go back to the browser, now you could see we have a list of the to-dos now have been fetched and listed. Okay, so I just want to do something here, something really cool, which you can see at least the users are by numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I just want to make it a bit more interesting. And so what I can do here, I can kind of map the number to a name, to a random name. So how you can do that is basically by creating a kind of a switch case statement, and I'm saying like case 1 return that name, case 2 return this name, and so on and so forward. And I just wrote until 7. You can continue because I think there are 10 in total, and the default is unknown. So basically, if for user 8, 9, 10, they will have the unknown name. And then I'm going to wrap this function with the user ID. So now if I save the file, I will switch back, and at least now we can see they have names. Yeah, and I think the latest ones are like you see unknown because I did not handle this case. All right, so this is very basic usages of useState and useEffect. And again, if you're really interested and want to know more in details and within more examples, please leave a comment below so I would know what to do next for you.
That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. See you next time.